Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, and let's get into our episode.
Intelligentsia, the endem of sarcasm, the nutty professor, to your whack-ass marmalade. It's T-Bone from T-Bone and Chick Brew in the Morning. Now available in podcast format. Simply search for the T-Bone and Chick Brew podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. It's your host, Jerome McClain. Independent media that won't reinforce tribalism. We have one planet. Nobody is leaving, so let us reason together. Okay, let's buckle up. When a headline flashed across my screen, Senator Mark Kelly under investigation for serious misconduct, I had one of those moments where you laugh, not because it's funny, but because the alternate is to flip a table and start yelling, circa Samuel L. Jackson, reading the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So Mark Kelly, Navy combat pilot, Mark Kelly, the astronaut, Mark Kelly, the man who literally strapped himself to a controlled explosion, rode into the heavens, and trusted physics and prayer to bring it back down. And that man is being investigated for misconduct. So let me walk you through this slow, like I'm teaching a boot camp class, and the class still can't figure out how to lace their boots right. He didn't. He didn't sell intel to a foreign adversary. He didn't misuse classified information. He didn't break the chain of command. He didn't compromise national security. He didn't lay hands on somebody in uniform. No, his crime, his grand earth-shattering act of serious misconduct, was saying that troops should not obey unlawful orders. So let me pause right there and hand out reading glasses, because apparently half of the political class can't see anymore. Unlawful orders. I'm going to say it for the people in the cheap seats and the ones pretending they forgot. Unlawful, not unpopular, not inconvenient, not politically troublesome, not the president might frown at you. Unlawful. Now that distinction is actually the backbone, I say, of the United States military. It's the one thing drilled into you so deeply that week by week, 3 of boot camp, you can say it in your sleep. As a master at arms in the United States Navy, that distinction wasn't academic, it was survival. As a federal law enforcement officer under the Department of Homeland Security and under Federal Protective Services, that wasn't a suggestion. It was policy training, legal doctrine, and our moral compass. Every recruit learns the same hierarchy: Constitution, law, mission, order. If number 4 violates number 1 through 3, you don't obey it. You stand your ground, even if your voice shakes. You refuse, even if it costs you stripes. You do not, under any condition, become the instrument of an unlawful command. So the question isn't why Mark Kelly said it. The question is why saying it suddenly feels dangerous. Why is Mark Kelly under investigation? Let's be honest. Because the word refuse makes insecure leaders break out in hives. Because someone with a shiny title and thin skin thinks loyalty to them is more important than loyalty to the United States Constitution. Because the political culture right now has an emotional range of a toddler with a megaphone, offended by everything and accountable to nothing and no one. Noam Chomsky warned us about this drift. This is a slow transformation where dissent gets relabeled as instability. Questioning becomes insubordination, and the people entrusted with power begin treating scrutiny and security as some type of sabotage. And as somebody who regularly likes to read and listen to witty people like Gore Vidal, I would say, somewhere, if he was around, he would be sipping a bourbon, raising an eyebrow so sharp it could cut a steel, whispering, "In America, the only unforgivable sin is telling the truth before the powerful people have prepared the lie." Mark Kelly's misconduct wasn't misconduct. It wasn't an indictment of the system. It was nothing more than the truth. He didn't create a crisis. He touched a sore spot. He didn't disrupt military tradition. He defended the only part of it that matters: lawful obedience rooted in the United States Constitution. But here's where it gets cold. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't bureaucratic static. This was a signal, a flare shot across a bow, a not so subtle message from the political class to the ranks. We hear you, we see you, and we don't like it when you make you think for ourselves. Veterans know messages like that don't originate from the bottom. Privates don't come up with stuff like this. This stuff trickles down from the high towers, from the folks who believe patriotism is something you perform on television, not something you bleed for in a uniform. And if you have ever watched a republic grow uneasy, you know this smell. This is how institutions tighten their grip. This is how democracy starts sweating. This is the moment where speaking truth sounds like sedition and blind obedience gets rebranded as loyalty. But let me tell you one of the ancient truths that every real service member knows. A military that cannot distinguish between a lawful order and an unlawful order is not a military. It is nothing more than a blunt instrument for people who are in power. And free nations do not survive blunt instruments. The republic doesn't crumble when enemies attack from the outside. It crumbles when silence becomes policy. And I'll say this, that moment is fastly approaching. This Mark Kelly situation, this kind of moment, historians circle and read and ready can say, yes, that was it right here. That was the warning shot. And let me dig into this a bit more by telling you how Mark Kelly even became a senator. Let's just go back in history for a moment. Now, as people close to me know, I originally wanted to be a history teacher and a wrestling coach. And so a lot of times when I'm staring at the face of what seems like political chicanery and foolishness, in order to not explode, I look for a historical comparison. And sometimes I will just dig into the history of a person, place, or thing and see how did we get to where we are. Makes it more impersonal, makes it a bit more impersonal and more academic. So here's a brief history of how Mark Kelly even rose to power. Because Mark Kelly did not stumble into politics. He was pushed into politics by tragedy, by grit, and by a national moment that rewired the country. Now, before Washington ever learned his name, he was already the type of American myth that it doesn't have to involve a lot of exaggerations. He was a Navy captain, a combat pilot, and a NASA astronaut who flew missions, 4 shuttle missions, and spent his adult life strapped to machines that could kill him if a single bolt said, quit. Then, it was around, it was in January 8th, 2011, when his wife, Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, was holding a press conference on Your Corner event outside of a Tucson supermarket. The most harmless form of democracy there is a politician standing in the open, hearing the people that they serve. A gunman walked up and shot her in the head at point blank range. The bullet traveled through the left hemisphere of her brain. Doctors weren't sure if she would live. Now, they definitely didn't think that she would be able to speak again. But Gabby Giffords lived. She fought. She clawed her way back through surgeries, through therapy, relearning words, relearning motions, relearning the world. And Mark Kelly, her husband, was right there. Not as a candidate, not as a public figure, but as a husband watching the ugliest part of American violence explode right into his living room. That shouldn't miss us, even though it was all the way in 2011, because the shooting didn't just wound Gabby Giffords. It launched the next chapter of their lives. Together, they became activists. Remember this. Together, they became activists against gun violence, founding the Americans for Reasonable Solutions, which later became part of Every Town for Gun Safety. Kelly himself became a national voice, calm, measured, but unshakably serious, in a debate over common sense gun reform. For years, people nudged him towards politics. He resisted, but Arizona wasn't changing. John McCain was gone. Martha McSally was weak, and the state needed someone with credibility that wasn't manufactured in a focus group. So, in 2019, he announced finally he was running for the United States Senate. He ran on service, stability, constitutional duty, and a voice that feels like a politician, less like a politician, and more like a man who lived through enough to skip all of the political nonsense. In 2020, he won this special election to fill the seat for the late Senator John McCain. Now, in 2022, he went on to win re-election outright, solidifying his position as one of the most visible moderate Democrats in the United States at the time. And here's the twist of fate. The man whose wife was shot in the head while doing her job is now being investigated because he told service members to honor the law and do their jobs, not the whims of political power. Now, history has a funny way of circling right back to itself to hope that we are paying attention. Sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's irony. Sometimes it is a raw, bitter truth that a man shaped by violence is now being punished for upholding the very principle that we were supposed to protect his wife in the first place. So let me get deeper into why this matters. And I'm going to go past Kelly at the moment. I'm going to widen this lens now because Mark Kelly is just chapter 1 of the opening before the real symphony starts. And before I talk about purges, ideological pressure, or filtrations, or political shadowboxing, we need to anchor ourselves in words that made me who I am and admit a lot of people who we are. The things that we recited before we ever touched a weapon, before we ever stood a watch, before we ever enforced a regulation and protected a building or guaranteed a federal employee protection as we guarded them. The words that shaped our backbone. Because this was the whole meat and potatoes. This is what we are messing with. This is the sailor's creed. I am a United States sailor. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and I will obey the orders of those appointed over me. I represent the fighting spirit of the Navy and those who go before me to defend freedom and democracy around the world. I proudly serve my country's naval combat team with honor, courage, and commitment. I am committed to excellence in the fair treatment of all. This is the Master at Arms Creed. It's probably has changed. This was from 2006 to 2015 when I was around. It is, I'm a Master at Arms. Hold allegiance to my country, devotion of duty, and personal integrity of all. I wear my shield of authority with dignity and restraint. Promote by example, high standards of conduct, appearance, courtesy, and performance. I will seek no favors because of my position. I perform my duties in a firm, courteous, and impartial manner. I strive to the merit and respect of my shipmates and all whom I come in contact with. Now let me take this up one level because when you, like me, and you left the fleet, and you walked into a place like the Department of Homeland Security, we actually weren't leaving the oath behind, we were expanding it. And while the Department of Homeland Security actually never issued a formal creed, it lives by mission principles, the ones drilled into every federal protective officer as well, every inspector, every agent who ever stood a federal post. So I'm going to speak those missions principles like it's a creed, so the people hearing the sound of my voice can hear the continuity of the duty that never left, that Washington never seems to understand for some reason. Now, this is the Department of Homeland Security, Creed style. I am a member of the Department of Homeland Security. I safeguard the homeland with integrity, diligence, and respect. I protect the nation from threats, foreign and domestic. I uphold the law and defend the United States Constitution. I have a professionalism, impartiality, and duty to the American public. I stand the watch to ensure the safety, security, and resilience of our nation. Now here's Federal Protective Services mission style. I'm a Federal Protective Service officer. I protect federal employees, visitors, and facilities with vigilance and resolve. I deter and detect and respond to threats against the federal government. I enforce the law with fairness, courage, and restraint. I safeguard public trust and uphold the United States Constitution I swore to defend. I stand ready to protect, ready to serve, and ready to secure the institutions of our democracy. Now that the creeds are on the table, now that the oaths are on the table, the creed of the sailor, the creed of the master at arms mission, the principles of the Department of Homeland Security and Federal Protective Services. Now we talk about what's happening today, because what's going on inside of the armed forces, especially inside of the JAGS Corps, is not a misunderstanding. It's not a routine turnover, and it's not a coincidence. This is a kind of quiet shift you only watch if you have lived inside of the machinery of the government long enough to hear when it starts making a new sound. This is what people in social science calls administration coercion. You don't fire anyone. You don't announce anything. You just apply pressure until integrity becomes inconvenient. And that is how the republic gets purged without a single shot being fired. Reassign the principal. They're not fired, just moved out of the way. Freeze promotions. Careers don't collapse loudly. They suffocate quietly into stalled paperwork. Open, vague, and blurry investigations. Conduct unbecoming. Alignment concerns. Command climate issues. These aren't charges. They're air fresheners for corruption. Reward the obedient. The sugar tastes better than discipline. Promote the ones who salute before they think. Label the constitutionalists as troublemakers. Anyone who says this is lawful suddenly becomes a team player. And this is happening right now. The JAGs, the very lawyers whose entire purpose is to tell the commanders when something crosses the lines of legal. A nation that begins to sideline its military lawyers is a nation preparing itself to violate the law. And I'll say this as someone who stood in a federal building at 3 a.m., watching the doors, protecting judges, guarding prosecutors, scanning cameras, listening to the smallest sound, trying to see if I can find a threat. When the system removes the people under the law, the system is preparing to break the law. The chilling part isn't the purge. The chilling part is the silence. Commanders feel it. Service members sense it. JAGS officers whisper about it. Federal employees feel the same tension. And that kind of settles in the air when the higher ups start looking for yes men instead of professionals. And I think about it like this. America will never have a fascist regime outright. We will call it something polite like enhanced patriotism. We aren't the regime, but we're definitely on the driveway, hands in our pockets, kicking the gravel, pretending we're not walking towards something we swore we would never allow. And this is the truth of the matter, spoken plainly and without apology. Republics, democracies, etc., they don't die when people revolt. It dies when good men become too cowardly, I'll just say. And when they decide to stay quiet. Not the extremists, not the corrupt, not the opportunists, not the grifters. It dies when the people who know better the ones who know the creeds, the ones who know the oaths, the ones who have the shit of authority, fall silent. But if you know that you didn't swear an allegiance to silence,
stay with us. We'll be right back.
has anybody ever told you you were over opinionated? How about this one? You can talk about everything you like, but don't talk about religion. Don't talk about faith. Don't talk about politics. My name is Jerome McClain, host of Jerome McClain Show, and I want to introduce you to a show called Over Opinionated with my friend from Southwest Virginia, Josh Scott. Josh has always been told he has been over opinionated. He always tried to hold back these opinions, but he tried to back them up when he had to say something with facts and logic. Since he's grown up in many ways, he had to change a lot of his views and his opinions, as a lot of people should. He's not a millionaire from Fox News or CNN. He's just a hard-working, blue-collar type of guy. Give Josh Scott a shot at Over Opinionated with Josh Scott. You can find him on patreon.com/overopinionated at 679. You can also check him out on Twitter at NRV_guy79. Over Opinionated with Josh Scott, where he is this soft-spoken guy telling you the truth. We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show. One very serious topic is women's health. One company that stood out to me was vslay.com, because the owner is very transparent about her own struggles in the women's health department and has great customer service, great deals, and frequent sales. You can check her out, her great customer service, products about women's health, and frequent sales at www.vslay.com. That is www.vslay.com. You swore allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America. You swore allegiance to duty. You swore allegiance to integrity. And that oath, it doesn't expire. It doesn't dim, and it doesn't bend. Now, not now, not ever. And that is why this whole thing with Mark Kelly had me on a high alert this morning. Right back from more of the Jerome McClain Show, and I'm going to get into some of this commentary to show how I just have to get to this Bill Maher stuff, and we will dive deeper. So first, let me go to the actual video that is being talked about here, and then we're going to hear the framing and see why this is troubling, problematic.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly. Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military,
but that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army, or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship. I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
former intelligence officer,
former Air Force,
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community.
Who take risks each day to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
Against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath.
to protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
Our Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
So yeah, I played that twice on purpose, only because I want you to hear what they said versus what is being said in this clip. Let's go to the overtime and real time of Bill Maher, and so we can get into what was actually said and then the framing of what was said.
News contributor and former DNC chair Donna Brazil. Trump threatened to pull ABC's license this week.
I know. What the hell?
See, this is what I'm talking about with Mel, about like the things that bother me versus the things that don't. That bothers me. You see, the ballroom, I give a fuck. I don't care about the ballroom. I care about that. You just, I mean, like, it's just, and also, like, did you see the thing about the 6 Democrats?
Yeah.
Who are all military service and intelligence work in their background, said, look, you don't have to follow orders.
Now,
I don't know about that. Now, I understand what they mean.
now listen to the word that was missing. Did they say? Did you hear in that video that I just played? You don't have to follow orders. No, that is not what was said. So the entire premise of how he starts the conversation is false, because it's built on false information. They all said specifically and clearly, you do not have to follow unlawful. You do not have to follow illegal orders. Let's go back to the show, though, for the sake of argument here.
Democrats,
Yeah.
who are all military service and intelligence work in their background, said, look, you don't have to follow orders. I don't know about that. Now, I understand what they mean, because this thing with Venezuela is not legal. But what do you think about telling people in the armed services you don't have to follow orders? Now, Trump, of course, went ballistic and said, George Washington would have hung them. Sedition, death. You know, he goes right to that, and then today he walked it back. I didn't mean death. You said death.
Yeah. And meanwhile, those lawmakers have to reach out to the U.S. Capitol Police, the House Sergeant at Arms, because they're getting death threats, because they're afraid. And look, Senator Mark Kelly.
Who's getting death threats?
Those members.
Oh, those members,
Alyssa
right.
Slotkin, Mark Kelly, who's married to Gabby Giffords. I mean, to get death threats, he understands that. So it was wrong for Donald Trump to say that online.
Of course.
Now, here's the point. The military, there's a military rule that says you must follow legal, lawful orders. It's already in their military contract. They know what they take.
But who's to say what that is?
Yeah.
Aren't the courts looking at that right now? And now you're going to say to 21-year-olds on the USS Enterprise, you have to decide?
Because there's an effort underway to politicize our military. I understand.
And government.
And weaponizing
and the
it.
Justice
In fact,
Department. Yeah.
And their point was, don't give up the ship. You've taken an oath. Don't give up the ship.
It's once you say to the military, you get to decide, as opposed to yes sir, no sir, follow orders. It's a dangerous area.
What about what we say?
Okay, so let me go ahead and correct the record here. So we've already seen that one thing that Bill Maher, so obviously a member of the media, Bill Maher not only has the show Real Time with Bill Maher that airs on HBO, it also airs on CNN now. So, do the U.S. military members have to follow unlawful orders No. In fact, we're actually required not to. There is no gray fog here. There is no poetic wiggle room. A service member is legally obligated to refuse unlawful orders, and not just morally, legally, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, under the federal law and under the very DNA of the American military tradition. That's the part that politicians conveniently forgot when the suits got together and they were outraged this week. Now, the law itself says it loud and clear. Again, I was a Master at Arms in the United States Navy. Under the Uniform Code Military Justice, Article 92, it says you must obey lawful order. The word lawful isn't just there for decoration. It's the whole point. You do not obey orders that violate the Constitution, orders that violate the Uniform Code of Military Justice, orders that violate federal or state law, orders that violate law and armed conflict, orders that violate basic human rights, orders that target civilians, prisoners, or protected persons, orders to commit war crimes, torture, or assault, orders given outside the authority of the person given to them. If you follow such an order, you're actually criminally responsible right alongside the person who gave it to you. This is why just following orders died as defense during the Nuremberg trials. From basic training, the Bible in the racks, every service member is taught this. Every branch drills it into us. Two truths. You obey lawful orders. You refuse unlawful orders, even if the rank is big, shiny, and screaming. Nobody outranks the United States Constitution. Not a general, not an admiral, not a colonel, not a captain, not a president, not a senator on cable news, fishing for sound bites. And let's be real, it takes the backbone to refuse one. Refusing an unlawful order is one of the heaviest responsibilities in uniform. You're risking disciplinary action, career retaliation, and social blowback, political heat. But that is what separates the United States military from the armies of tyrants. We are loyal to the law, not to the men who sign your paychecks. Now, what the political people in D.C. or wherever when they all get wrong all the time, or they pretend not to know, folks like J.D. Vance, who wore the military uniform as a Marine, and others before him play this game where they pretend military must do what I say. No, the military must do what the law says. Congress writes the laws. Yes. But Congress cannot order someone to break the Constitution. So when lawmakers tell troops to disobey illegal orders, that is literally what the military already trains us to do. But when lawmakers accuse troops of disobedience for rejecting illegal orders, that's when they veer into authoritarian cosplay. As a Master at Arms, I already know the creed. I was literally trained with this: devotion to duty, personal integrity above all, and the shield of authority worn with restraint. Authority without legality is not authority. It is illegal. It is actually abuse. So bottom line, military members must obey lawful orders. Military members must refuse unlawful orders, and the law protects us when we have to. Anyone saying otherwise is either misinformed, performing, or hoping you're too stupid to know or you're not paying attention. Got it? So I just did the work for you like I did on the previous show. Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 92. It fully defines what you are supposed to do with lawful and unlawful orders. Go back to the Nuremberg trials and go look at what happened when the soldiers said we were following orders. We did not accept that. They were found guilty, and the rest, as they like to say, is history. Now I'm going to move on to James Comey and Letitia James. But first I'm going to get to something that the Defense Secretary said, and because I have to, well, look, I didn't have to, but because I wanted to, because I'm a public figure now, I had to step right into it. So the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, is very active on social media. And he posted on Twitter. He posted on Facebook, calling them seditious traitors and so on and so forth. And so if you follow the Department of War, as it has been labeled by them, he put out a statement that said, and I quote, this is the official statement, by the way, 3 days ago as if I'm reading it. The Department of War has received allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly, United States Navy, retired. In accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice 10 U.S.C. 6088 and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated and determined further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures. This matter will be handled in compliance with military law, ensuring due process and impartiality. Further official comments will be limited to preserve the integrity of the proceedings. The Department of War reminds us all that individuals and military retirees remain subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice for applicable offenses, and federal laws such as Article 18 U.S.C. 2387 prohibit actions instead intended to interfere with the loyalty, moral, or good order and discipline of the armed forces. Any violations will be addressed thoroughly through appropriate legal channels. All service members are reminded that they have a legal obligation under the Uniform Code of Military Justice to obey, get this, lawful orders, and those orders are presumed to be lawful. A service personnel philosophy does not justify an excuse for disobedience, otherwise lawful order. Now, so this is what I said to the Secretary of Defense. It is difficult not to notice the familiar choreography here. The government issues a sternly worded communique invoking the full ritual of the legal citations, statutory reminders, and solemn declarations about good order and discipline. And yet, conspicuously absent is any examination of the context of or any political unity of such statements. Historically, when an institution stresses the presumption of lawfulness of its own directives, one should pay closer attention not because the orders are necessarily unlawful, but because the power system tends to obscure their own deviations behind formal language. The text read less like a natural legal clarification and more like a preemptive attempt to discipline the boundaries of acceptable dissents. The invocation of 18 U.S.C. 2387 is particularly telling. This statute has been deployed time and again, not to guard against genuine subversion, but to suppress unwelcome criticism, especially when such criticism exposes institutional failure or misconduct. To imply that questioning authority risks undermining loyalty or morale is a well-known technique of bureaucratic self-protection. Democracies, at least in theory, function on the assumption that loyalty flows upward after accountability flows downward, not the other way around. Moreover, the remainder and the reminder that the retirees remain subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice is technically accurate, but selectively emphasized. One might ask why the full coercive apparatus of the U.S. military law becomes activated in some cases, but not others, particularly when far more consequential misconduct by senior officials has been historically ignored, minimized, or retroactively justified under the banner of national security. The statement's closing line that service members' personal philosophy does not justify or excuse disobedience deserves special scrutiny. The phrasing implies that moral reasoning is an irritant rather than an essential safeguard against unlawful behavior. But the Nuremberg principles, which the United States ostensibly endorses, rest on the opposite premises. Individuals have an obligation not to obey unlawful orders, and personal consciousness is not merely permissible but required. If the aim is to defend the integrity of the armed forces, transparency would serve far better than admonitions. The public doesn't need more reminders about the reach of the military law. It needs assurance that such power will not be deployed selectively, politically, or punitively. Until then, declarations like this function mainly as signals not of justice, but of just institutional anxiety. So we will see if I get a letter from the Department of Defense And just for the record, the 6 senators who, Congress, senator, CIA officials who said this are getting visits from the FBI, as if the FBI does not know that they said the word unlawful.
Look, you don't have to follow orders. I don't know about that. Now, I understand what they mean, because this thing with Venezuela is not legal. But what do you think about telling people in the armed services you don't have to follow orders? Now, Trump, of course, went ballistic and said, George Washington would have hung them. Sedition, death. You know, he goes right to that, and then today he walked it back. I didn't mean death. You said death.
Yeah. And meanwhile, those lawmakers have to reach out to the U.S. Capitol Police, the House Sergeant at Arms, because they're getting death threats, because they're afraid. And look, Senator Mark Kelly.
Who's getting death threats?
Those members.
Oh, those members,
Alyssa
right.
Slotkin, Mark Kelly, who's married to Gabby Giffords. I mean, to get death threats, he understands that. So it was wrong for Donald Trump to say that online.
Of course.
Now, here's the point. The military, there's a military rule that says you must follow legal, lawful orders. It's already in their military contract. They know what they take.
But who's to say what that is? Yeah. Aren't the courts looking at that right now? And now you're going to say to 21-year-olds on the USS Enterprise, you have to decide?
Because there's an effort underway to politicize our military. I understand.
And government.
And weaponizing
and the Justice Department.
Yeah. And their point was, don't give up the ship. You've taken an oath. Don't give up the ship.
It's once you say to the military, you get to decide, as opposed to yes sir, no sir, follow orders. It's a dangerous area.
What about what we say in 9th grade civics class, though, about the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution? That goes back to undereducating Americans, period. I think that there's a goal in public schools to make sure Americans are dumb. And I don't just mean Americans that look like me. To make sure the average working class American is dumb. The average soldier...
You think that's a conspiracy?
Yeah, I do. Because I think that the average working...
Well, again, that's the Democrats' portfolio is education.
Yeah, I don't give a shit which side of the fence you on.
Okay, great.
It hasn't been good for America. I happen to believe in this republic. I think that as young as we are in 250 years, we stand the greatest chance of being one of the greatest republics ever to have been formed on Earth. But we are giving up too much. And part of what you give up is the adherence to the United States Constitution and the understanding that Constitution can transform. It can be amended. It can be grow. I personally think the 13th Amendment needs to be re-amended so that we don't have an excuse for slavery, period. That ends the need for private and state prisons in the same way, reduces the prison population from what used to be 500,000 over 2 million now. But I think that soldiers do have a responsibility to adhere to the Constitution. I think if you're sent in on orders to disrupt a First Amendment constitutionally protected thing, I think as a soldier you should say absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. And because we're just picking sides right now, and George Carlin said years ago, it's a club and you ain't in it. What we're doing is picking members of the club who are going to fly on a jet together afterwards, whether they're Democrat or Republican. They're buddy-buddy. They went to Harvard, they went to Yale, they went to Morehouse, they went to Howard together. They're still going to be friends after. The bourgeoisie and up, that class is going to be okay. But we, the working class, the people got to wear shit like this to work every day, we're going to get fucked over in this. And people who wear shit like this every day usually do this and say yes, sir, and no, sir. So for me, I would rather our soldiers be strictly adherent to the United States Constitution and not follow any order that's unconstitutional.
Again, You're asking, the military is just different. I'm sorry. You're asking.
No, the military is not different because the military has already been told, according to the articles, to already do this. The military is I'm sorry, Bill. We can walk and chew gum at the same time here. If you should follow orders. If the president told them to assassinate Bill Maher, would he have the same belief system? I highly doubt it. I doubt I think he'd be screaming at the top of his lungs, they need to obey. They need to not obey that. They did this is unlawful. This is silliness. This is the same person who, when George Bush was president, was running around in the group saying he was a war criminal, et cetera, et cetera. Just Just ridiculous.
Kids who probably don't know anything about the Constitution to make that decision.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I think I skipped over a bit, but what I have to say here is that he's missing is that the senators said, who do know about the Constitution, Bill Maher is missing the point that they said that they would have their backs. That's a big point that has gone missing in this.
We're going to get
the big point that has gone missing, and that if you paid attention to the video, it was the senators, the lawmakers, the co-equal branch of government saying, we will have your back. That's the big thing that Bill Maher's missing. You disobey the order, whatever, you write the letter to your congressmen and your senators, and they will have your back, because it will be a federal charge, and the only people who can get you out of those federal charges are who? Thank you for the attention to this matter.
Make that decision.
We gotta fix that too, Bill. Like
I know, but we haven't fixed it. But right now we
bring
have
that fucking schoolhouse rock on Saturday. It's like we gotta do something, brother. We can't just have an ignorant proletariat.
I know, but you'll be okay if they did that with Obama, because he blew up some.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
He blew up some wedding parties.
I was gonna hold, so I wasn't gonna talk about this, right?
Oh,
we killed Gaddafi. We knocked him off the motherfucking
face. Sure, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Right? You're like, absolutely. But as a black person, I saw slavery return to Libya. I saw a man who was willing to help black people in their plight and their struggle by giving billions, ignored. I saw someone who wanted to unite Africa under one currency and have a potential United States of Africa. And I know how dangerous that is to you of the United States. I saw that crushed. And as an American, I had to shut the fuck up, go with the Republic. But that's something, if I ever had a chance to talk to Obama, I'd really say,
so you see Gaddafi good guy?
I see Gaddafi has been not as bad as they said. But I can't see any president I have as a good guy. I love Obama. The symbol of Obama is up in my motherfucking house. He's a black man. He became president. And he did more drone bombings than any other U.S. president before him. He and Hillary Clinton disturbed a country called Libya, in which you used to have a free house, free education, free, and now it's not free anymore. And there are people who look like me that aren't free. So as much as I love my republic,
it was a very repressive dictator.
Now think about how absolutely pathetic that sounds. One guy says, look, here's the facts, here's the history. This happened through this administration, during this person, and then the immature response from the host, Bill Maher, is, whataboutism? Oh, well, are you saying that he's good? Was the word good even used? There was facts pointed out what one government did to another government. And because Bill Maher has some type of either amnesia or his addiction to pretending like the government he is sitting in is perfect, his brain does not know what to do except say, so he must be good. No, governments are neither good or bad. These are decisions being made by adults in a room, and the people who make the decisions affect other people who are not in the room. Hence, when the gentleman, Michael Render, also known as Killer Mike, pointed out the fact that these are the policies that were being passed in Libya that were active, and this is what's happening now. Bill Maher has to gloss right over that because he does not want to deal with those facts, or he is woefully ignorant of those facts. He glossed right over the mention of housing. He glossed right over the mention of slavery returning to the area and had to say, he was repressive. What about right now? What about the slavery that is happening right now because of U.S. foreign policy that has been murderously battlesome in the Middle East, and that includes Democrats like Barack Hussein Obama?
I hear what you're saying. We're living under one now. We ain't storming the fucking White House.
It was not. You know what?
There's ICE walking down American neighborhoods.
Okay, if you think that's the same as Libya,
I didn't say the same. I said repressive.
But let's have some perspective.
All right.
Because it's very.
Before y'all go smoke. I really like this.
It's very easy to lose.
And when the emails came out, the email said essentially we were doing it for the French. Like, how long do the French get to fucking live off Haiti, Libya, West Africa? How long before you got to ante up what's in the Louvre?
The French are still living off Haiti?
Oh, yeah. Haiti
Well,
still has
why can't they fix it then?
Why can't Haitians fix it?
No, or the French. If the French are so involved.
There's no interest in
Don't you read France
Fanon? Do you read Richard the Earth? You dated enough black women to know this shit. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, the French.
You gotta tell them at night.
The French pulled out of Haiti like in 1806.
No, what I'm saying though is Haiti has been punished since 1806. Frederick Douglass wrote about this too, for being an example that you can without colonizers. And to end colonization is going to take some form of violence. I think anyone who threatens colonies or the colonists are crushed. So whether Gaddafi was ultimately, in my eyes, good or bad,
I mean, the people who
better
are
than what they have now.
The people who have been repressing the people in Haiti for a very long time are not French.
Shit, me.
They're other Haitians. You don't really.
They're Haitians that are put into place.
Doc Duvalier
let's not act like we don't put dictators into place.
Okay, but they're not French.
Yeah, I was about to say, we help them come to power.
They're not French. They're not Americans. They are Haitians.
So the benefits,
they're Haitians.
No benefits go to the French from Haiti anymore.
Tell me what. I'm not aware of that.
I'm just saying, Haiti still
tell me, what's going on?
As far as I know, Haiti's still sending money to France, that's all.
Sending money?
Falling apart. That's what I know.
Okay.
And we need to do more to help countries like Haiti, especially.
So what's to do more? I would say we need to reparate countries we've colonized. There's a payment to be made to help countries get. So we took Libya. What have we done to help their country become democratic?
So look, let me just do this right now, because I've heard them talk long enough about that, even though I may or may not go back to it. So, you ever notice how nations love to brag about entitlement, liberty, democracy until you bring up the one bill they never paid? And when we talk about this, we have to think about Haiti in context. And I'm actually talking as someone who had to do a disaster relief mission in Haiti. So, let's talk about it. Haiti, the little island that took on the world's greatest slave empire and won, is the only successful slave revolt in human history. Haiti did what Rome couldn't, what America wouldn't, and the French never imagined. Enslaved people broke their chains and then broke their captors. And how did France respond to losing its wealthiest colony, its sugar crown jewel? The island powered its economy. France said, "You want freedom? Beautiful. Pay us for it." Imagine fighting for a man for your life, beating him, and then he charges you rent for the privilege. That's what happened. In 1825, France sailed a whole quadrant of warships to Haiti, not to trade, not to negotiate, but to show the flag and cook the gun. And France told Haiti, "You will compensate us for the loss of our enslaved labor, or we will re-enslave you." Now that is not diplomacy. That's the most gangster economic threat in Western history. And Haiti, a brand new nation made of formerly enslaved people with no allies, had no choice. They borrowed money from the French banks to pay France itself. They fell into debt and the trap designed to keep them from crawling. Let me put it plainly here. Haiti paid its enslavers until exactly 1947. Now think about that. My grandparents weren't even born a part of that timeline. One of them was, because my granddad was born in 1937. But, so, that's not ancient history. That's like yesterday, with the serial numbers filed off. Now, fast forward to the question that we get all the time that you just heard Bill Maher ask: is France still living off of Haiti today? So let me give you a real smooth, sharp, not actively, but absolutely. So no, France does not have a pipeline running for Haiti to Paris right now. But nations move through history like people move through money. If you robbed somebody rich 200 years ago and invested every dollar that they've been broke, and they've been broke ever since, you are still living off of that robbery. Haiti started its national life with a ball chain made of gold. Gold that sailed straight across the Atlantic and dropped into French banks. That money built French institutions, it cushioned French budgets, it protected French elites. It multiplied through centuries of compound interest. Meanwhile, Haiti, the nation that dared to say, we are free because God made us free, was stuck trying to build a country while paying the ransom for its own liberty. And that's why you see so much of the instability. That's why you see so much poverty. That's why Haiti keeps getting pushed into the arms of foreign helpers who always seem to help themselves just a little bit too much. This wasn't destiny. It wasn't fate. It was engineered debt and engineered extraction. And France still refuses to pay it back, still refuses to acknowledge the scale of theft, still gives speeches about friendship and partnership like none of this ever happened. So let me make this very plain again. For the people in the back row, France is not stealing from Haiti today. France is still benefiting from the wealth it stole yesterday. And until the day France repays the ransom, or at least admits it, the conversation will not be over. Because justice isn't just about how you steal now. Justice gives back what you took. Now, I know somebody's going to listen to this and say, Darrell, why would you bring up old history and now to say this? Is because the past is never the past. The consequences are still living in the present. That is not about guilt. It's about math. It's about accountability. It's about truth. And it's the only thing strong enough to disinfect history. So to answer the question one last time, are the French still living off Haiti? No, not with new chains, not with new ships, not with new threats. But yes, they're still standing on old memory, old crimes, old interests, old advantages. And until that ledger is acknowledged, the world will keep wondering why one of those most courageous nations on earth has struggled to stand tall since they got their freedom. But Haiti will rise again one day. It always has, and it always will, because a nation born in liberation cannot and will not stay down forever. Now we have to get to James Comey and Letitia James. I'm not going back to the Bill Maher clip. That's available for you to watch on YouTube. It was the overtime segment. Let's go to Letitia James and James Comey so we can get out of here. I've been getting fired up about these things lately, so the shows have been running a bit longer. But now let's talk about the legal theater that became the James Comey and Letitia James case, and that were hyped, paraded, live streamed, webinized, turned into headlines, and sold to the public like political payback wrapped in a bow. And then, just like a flimsy courtroom drama with bad acting, dismissed, tossed, dropped like a script even a Lifetime movie wouldn't buy. See, America is now in love with the illusion of accountability. The illusion of accountability, but allergic to the discipline of justice. We crave perp walks. We crave mugshots. We crave humiliation. But the law, real law, it doesn't care about how angry you are. It doesn't care about TikTok clips or Twitter rants. It doesn't care about your favorite politician's promise to get them. Courts don't deal in emotions. They deal in evidence. They deal in procedure. They deal in the burden of proof. And a phrase half of the country refuses to learn, but still has loud opinions about. So when the cases collapsed, it wasn't because James Comey is a choir boy or Letitia James is untouchable. It's because the charges were built on a wet cardboard, held together with political duct tape and wishful thinking. So let me say it like this. Politicians promise consequences they knew they couldn't deliver. They weaponized public anger without understanding the law. They sounded the trumpet without checking if the cavalry even existed. And when the courts, in the dry, cold, beautiful, unsentimental way, simply replied, no, that is the moment where I would lean into what I said earlier about Noam Chomsky. States manufacture narratives far more easily than they administer justice. And I had to recline back in my chair as I sit here grinning, and I think this. In America, failure is an art form, and lying is patriotic duty. Look at the cycle. build the villain, promise the takedown, leak the investigation, tease the indictment, celebrate prematurely, watch the case implode, pretend like nothing happened when the case collapses. When the case does eventually collapse, silence, shrug, technical issue, biased judges, deep state interference, pending appeal. No accountability for the people who lied to the public. No explanations for millions wasted. No apology for the outrage machine that they turned on high. They just move on to the next target like addicts chasing the next political high. But the damage is cumulative, because what does this teach the country? It teaches people that justice is just a vibe, not a process. It teaches people that the courtroom is a battlefield, not a safeguard. It teaches people that law can be molded like clay, shaped by whoever wins the last election. And that right there is how republics die. Not through tanks rolling through downtown Pennsylvania Avenue, but through cynicism. And if you tell a nation long enough that a law is a joke, eventually the nation will become a joke itself. And here's a deeper warning. These cases and their collapse, they are not the end of the story. They reveal some of the story. They are flashing red lights showing us how fragile the system is becoming, because every now and then the courts still hold the line. They still say no. They still show us that the backbone of the republics aren't fully broken. But make no mistake, the bones are being bent. They are being bent in the military. They are being bent in the courts. They are being bent in Congress. They are being bent by pundits and influencers and politicians who treat the constitutions like it's optional reading. And if we keep bending them, if we keep letting the system become a loyalty test, a weapon, a tool for theatrics, eventually the bones are going to snap. And when the bones snap and the infrastructures fall with them, boom. Now we are a banana republic. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com and getting a membership for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show. The Jerome McClain Show is fully listener-supported, independent media that won't lead you to tribalism. Get a membership and support independent media at www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show.